who was back when we was at the old Pete Harris. She came to see us when we were down at Holiday Inn. She's a former city court judge. She's worked for the public defender's office, and she's no stranger to our community. Let's give a warm welcome, and we welcome Miss LeLeshia Walker Alford.
Good morning. Somebody said that it couldn't be done, but she with a chuckle replied that maybe it could. She'd be one who wouldn't say so until she tried. So she buckled right in with a trace of a grin on her face. If she worried, she hid it. She started to sing as she tackled that thing that couldn't be done, and she did it. Somebody scoffed, "You'll never do that. No one has ever done it." But with a lift of a chin and a bit of a grin, without any doubting or quitting, she started to sing as she tackled that thing that couldn't be done, and she did it. There are thousands to tell you it cannot be done, thousands to prophesy failure, thousands to point out to you one by one the dangers that wait to assail you. But we must buckle right in with a trace of a grin on our face. Take off your coat and go to it. Start to sing as you tackle that thing that cannot be done, and you'll do it. That poem is by Edgar Guest, and my mother, who was a great teacher of literature and civics for over 30 years and taught Ollie Tyler, taught me many poems. Yes, I am LeLeshia and Walker Alford. I'm running on my whole name. My mother gave me the name LeLeshia Ann. My father gave me his last name Walker. When he and my mother met at Wiley College and were Wiley College sweethearts, he moved her to Louisiana. And I was married to Robert Alford. I am Kyron Alford's mother. Kyron entered LSU Honors College on last week with an academic scholarship, graduating magna cum laude from Caddo Magnet High. But I want everyone's child to have an opportunity for education, chance, and opportunity. I am gravely concerned about our community because we are focusing on the wrong end of the problem. I've heard many other candidates talk about being tough on crime. What does that mean? What does it mean to be tough on crime? Does it mean that we have the largest number of incarcerated persons in any civilized country, larger than Russia, the former Soviet Union? Does it mean that we pay $30,000 per inmate per year to incarcerate? Does it mean that we incarcerated so many non-violent criminals that we are running out of space, that the taxpayer is overburdened? We must swiftly prosecute those who are maiming, raping. But why is it that in this parish, 72 rape kits have not been tested? Why is it no one has spoken to that? The district attorney's office must be on top of every prosecution and do everything that is necessary to bring the victim to justice and to bring the perpetrator to justice. So, we have persons who are burglarizing, terrorizing our communities, shooting into houses where little girls are doing their homework. I believe we must protect the most vulnerable in our society: women, children, the elderly, the disabled. We must rid our streets of career criminals and those who commit violent crimes. We must not continue to live behind bars as though we have committed a crime, and with our alarm systems always on because we are afraid. I want to improve the quality of life for everyone in Caddo Parish. But just saying I'll be tough on crime is like baking a cake with no eggs, no flour, no sugar, no butter, and watching it in the oven and asking it to rise. What do? We must reach out and provide leadership through the district attorney's office to identify at-risk youth. We must provide activities through the district attorney's office, not taxpayer activities, but allow at-risk youth to criminal justice system up front. For example, one thing that I have proposed is a DA kids camp, where in the summer, a young person can shadow a district attorney. In an appropriate case for his or her age, he or she would be allowed to watch the prosecutor pick the jury, watch the prosecutor make an opening statement, watch the prosecutor as he or she questions the witnesses, watch a closing statement. Let's identify those children who are outside, those children who may not have a parent at home, those children who have one or more parents incarcerated, those children who are growing up in unsafe communities. Let's bring them to the forefront, partnering with education to try to reach people before they're criminals. Imagine that. Can we reduce crime? Yes, we can even eliminate some crimes. But just accepting crime as an inevitability, just saying I'm going to be tough on crime, provides not a single solution that has worked. If that had worked, we'd have no crime in Shreveport today. No crime in Caddo Parish, because we are incarcerating at a rate by 2050 that more people will be incarcerated than out. Let me say that again. By 2050, at the rate of our incarceration, we will have more people in jail than out. We have to try something different. I've done all of the jobs except a police officer. I've been a judge. I've been a prosecutor. And I guess Mr. Carmush didn't endorse me because I was breastfeeding while I was a prosecutor. I even developed a pump that I need to patent so I could have hands-free and type and yet breastfeed my child. Women have some particular challenges, but we can meet them. We can multitask. We can think. It will be a struggle, but we must struggle together. Frederick Douglass said those who deprecate struggle and want freedom are the people who want to have a crop without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want something without giving anything. He said, we may not get everything we pay for, but we must pay for everything we get. I will say this to you. Let's build alliances with business. The higher the crime rate, the lower the business opportunity. Let me say that again. Higher the crime rate, the lower the business opportunity. Business does not come into a community where they also think people are treated unfairly. There is a caste on our district attorney's office. To many people, it appears that only one segment of the population receives the harshest sentences. I want to have a transparent administration. I want to have an administration that has an integrity unit, that has another assistant attorney, district attorney, look over the most serious cases to make sure we haven't made mistakes. It is unconscionable that Nathaniel Code has been on death row for 30 years. He killed 12 people. He now wants air conditioning. My aunt worked 4 jobs and she got air conditioning when I bought it for her. 4 jobs. 30 years. $1 million at least to prosecute him, and at least $1 million over 30 years. The victims will die before he comes to justice. What I'm saying is that we must prosecute cases in the right way. We must uphold justice no matter what the crime is and how we feel about the crime. We must uphold the Constitution because the people who signed that day, the Declaration of Independence, committed treason. They signed their names because they believed in America, and so do I. I believe in America that we do not ascend into positions because of our last name. I believe we have to get out and talk to the voter. That's why I tell my voters my whole name. I'm running on my whole name, as a woman, as a mother. I believe safer streets are possible in every community. I believe better schools are possible in every community. I must partner with law enforcement to teach our children a positive aspect of those who patrol their communities. Kindergartens can find out who is the police officer in my neighborhood. Let me invite that person to my kindergarten class. Let's let that police officer know who those children are and let those children know who that police officer is. Let's let him be invited to every activity the children have. And that way, he gets to know Johnny. If he sees Johnny doing something that he shouldn't be doing, he can say, I came to your Christmas program. Now I need you to take that bicycle and it's time to go home. Community policing does work, but the community has to get involved on both sides. I will say that we have a $65 billion gross national product that's in jail. The amount of money that we pay is killing us. I'm not talking about letting everybody out. What I'm talking about is people who are minor offenders, people who have very low crimes. We can divert them out of the system so that they can work and pay taxes. People who have not committed violent crimes need an opportunity to redress whatever they did, pay their fine, make restitution. But why should we, those who have worked all of our lives, pay for someone to sit down all day? Think about it. I walk the pod at CDC almost every week. I see people doing nothing at all. Why not change that? Why not look for ways to make everyone a participant? Those persons who are violent and commit the most heinous crimes, let's concentrate on putting them behind bars. Sojourner Truth said something as I closed that I believe. She was a former slave and an abolitionist. And she said this in a speech. If one woman could turn the whole world upside down, named Eve, then a woman can turn it right side up again. I believe I'm that woman. I believe I have a vision, for the Bible says, without a vision, the people perish. So my solution is that we work to reduce, eliminate, and prosecute crimes. That we work to give the examples that young people need to have. That we emphasize character and hard work. That we give everyone an opportunity to participate in the political process. Count on me. Count on me to not have been paid for by a group of lawyers. I am taking my candidacy to the streets. I don't think one group of politicians should control, one group of professionals should control an election. I think everybody ought to participate. I think if you have $1 to give me or $5, I've had rummage sales to raise money. I didn't go to all of the lawyers and ask them for the maximum amount because I wanted to come to the people. The Caddo District Attorney represents the people, not just one group of professionals. Plumbers, electricians, teachers, physicists, professors, doctors, lawyers, mothers who are stay-at-home mothers, dads who are staying at home, nurses. The Caddo Parish District Attorney's Office is an office that belongs to the public. I thank you for your attention, and I am poised at this time to ask for you to ask me any questions that you wish.
Let's go. We have coffee made. Please drop a couple dollars to thank them for using the facility. We're going to start with Greg, and we'll go around the room. If you have a question, raise your hand for the knowledge. Good morning.
Good morning, Shirley.
Now, your push card says our plans to reduce crimes against women and children. How would you actually be able to do that, since that is a psychological deal
stepfather was the first terrorist I knew. He beat my mother almost to death because she bought me a green sweater without his permission. During that time, my stepbrother sexually abused me. The last time my stepfather decided to kill my mother, he threw her in front of a moving car on Hollywood Avenue. She was paralyzed for a time. These issues, domestic violence, are breeding grounds for other crimes. When I say reducing those crimes, we have to identify young people who are at risk, who live and witness domestic violence early. We have to take domestic violence cases seriously. It's more than a chart. It's more than writing some words. It is 1 in 8 women are killed every day by their partner, their husband, or their lover. So what I mean is to make sure the subpoenas go out on the same day that the case is going to be prosecuted. I mean making sure that when people commit a crime, domestic violence is not a family affair, it is a crime, that these people receive a sentence appropriate. As far as children, I talked about identifying children and giving them opportunities to participate in the criminal justice system at an early age so they can see firsthand how it works, what needs to be done. And maybe we can reach some of them and teach some of them, and perhaps some of them will want to be involved as a police officer, as an assistant district attorney. One of my concerns, Craig, is why 71 rape kits have not been tested. You are raped, and then you go to the hospital, and you stand on a paper bag to see if any pubic hairs fall out of your vagina. Then a speculum is stuck into your vagina, and then something is stuck into your anus after you've been raped. Then under your nails is scraped to see if you have any DNA material. And we don't even test the rape kit? The DA needs to find the funding or pay for it, just like any other evidence we pay for in a crime. But it's way more sexy to talk about prosecuting a murderer than it is to talk about prosecuting a rapist. When we don't test that case, that information doesn't go into CODIS. So that means that rapist can continue raping. We don't have the information. He can rape somebody else. That's what makes me angry. That crimes against women, purse snatching, women who are raped and molested, children who are raped and molested, it seems that sometimes these get pushed aside until there's a murder. But I will tell you from my own personal experience that domestic violence is an accelerating crime. It accelerates, and it accelerates to the point that the perpetrator will eventually kill that victim. Thank you for that question.
What's your, along the lines, and I'll pass it on, there's a case, and I don't remember the young lady's name, but she was a single African-American female mother of 2, 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. She goes to the club one night, leaves the children home, 6-year-old tries to cook, burns the apartment down, he jumps from the 2nd floor, 4-year-old is killed. DA pursues the case, 2nd-degree murder charge is sought. What's your, you think that's too harsh of a sentence, or what's your take on it?
It's my understanding that case was reversed on appeal, and I believe that the appellate courts came back with negligent homicide. What I will say, Mr. Lee, is that it's a tragedy. Unfortunately, we're having young people who are having children who have no parenting skills at all. They have no one to look to, no big mama, to say, you don't leave your children at home. What I would like to do, in addition to prosecuting a crime that involves a child that's left at home and has not suffered an injury, is to have programs in place that are mandatory. Have that young woman, she must take a parenting course. She must take that course and be successful in it. We can partner with other agencies, psychiatrists, psychologists, sociologists, to give them the skills necessary to understand. Many of them are so young when they've had children. They don't have any skill set. They don't even have the skill set when they take an EBT card and they get their money at the beginning of the month. They don't have the skill set to buy oatmeal, beans, rice, and something to get you through the month. No one has taught them how to make nutritious meals and how to make that money last for an entire month. The DA can't, of course, do all of this, but the DA can identify resources and not only penalize the person, but recognize that this is a social problem. It can't be solved by just incarcerating that woman because she'll get out. And if we incarcerate all of these women, do you know what happens to the 2 children? Does anybody know? They are split up. Very few foster homes will take 2 children. The foster system is broken. Many of the people who work in foster care only do it because they get a check. Those children are beaten, raped, abused, sexually exploited in these foster homes. I believe in trying to invest in parents, trying to give them the skills necessary, but also I believe that punishment is deserved in certain cases. But like I said, while that person is incarcerated, that person needs to be given some skills when she is released so that she may be a productive citizen. That was a tragic case. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yes.
Okay. I don't like to stay in, but I got
Hey,
an
Miss
early
Bessie.
morning just
Hey, sweetheart.
to come. Because what I'm finding is a lot of promises. And I don't believe on job training when we hire people. I believe in experience. And what I found out, a lot of people make statements, I'm going to do this, justice for all people, but specifically, how are you going to go about that? All I hear is keep saying the same thing over and over. When you brought up about the children, I know in the 80s, the 90s, the policemen used to have policemen out in the community riding horses, weed and seed, drug-free Shreveport. All of that will stop. We also had what Mr. Mays, Pastor Mays talk about the Citizen Advisory Board for policemen. It used to be a time from the DA office, before you could move a person, you would have to have a person there from the DA office to see exactly what was going on. That stopped, okay? Right now, that thing is winning. I know because I was a part of it, okay? Another thing about that internal affair, I may not be calling it, we moved it, but all of it now look like we get up, we do a lot of talking. I ask myself, what experience? It sounds good, but what are you going to do to bring justice for all people? Talk is cheap, and I'm just going to say that. I know that. I've experienced that, but I like to see results. And what I see now, we are going backwards instead of forward. I don't believe on job training. I believe when you get in there, just like you hit the ground running to get into office, you need to continue that and get involved with the communities. And that is what's hurting me now. I said, well, let me get up and come and see what you're going to offer. You understand? I heard you say a lot of things, but I'm wondering what techniques are you going to use if you are elected for this position?
Thank you for that question. Thank you so much. For 10 years while on the city court bench, I made certain that every person who came before me was able to read at the 6th grade level before he or she was released from probation.
Will you explain how did you go about it?
I ordered it as a condition of your sentence. It is required in the code, but very few judges were using it. I required that you get a voter registration card because in Louisiana, we're one of the few states that allows you to have a voter registration card even if you have a felony, as long as you haven't are not on probation or parole. Every prostitute that came before me, men or women, I made sure that the women were tested for pregnancy so that the child could receive AZT and the child would not be positive for HIV. I never had a prostitute come back because I also gave them an opportunity for drug treatment. Every veteran that came before me, I found a shelter for that person that had given his time and put his life on the line for us. I partnered with Virginia Sheehy to make sure young people had symphony tickets so they could go see the Nutcracker. They could go to a symphony. They could know we've done more than back that thing up. So I have a record of doing alternative sentencing because I recognize crime as a symptom. You know crime is a symptom? You know what the feeders of crime are? Ignorance, poverty, illiteracy, being on the outside, one or more parents that is incarcerated. You're right. I would be a DA. I will be a DA that will go to Vivian, Oil City, go to Morningsport, and find out what's going on. It should not be an ivory tower position. It should not be a position that you just sit in your office and politic. You have to get out, do grassroots efforts to change. One of the things we have to look at is how expungements work. Pennsylvania has a new act called the Clean Record Act. It allows an expungement automatically for a very low grade arrest or offense. They are saving $53 billion a year by allowing people to go to school if they've had a minor conviction or minor arrest and get funding for schooling, go become a beautician, become a barber, become a teacher, become a worker by clearing up records. If you have a marijuana offense and it is a doobie, a very small amount, you cannot work at the casino. You can't be a busboy there. If that is on your record, you can't get into beauty school. You can't get into barbering school. How does this help our community? A very low-grade crime. I'm not talking about people bringing in kilos. I'm talking about a stupid 17-year-old who drives around with a doobie or a little bag of marijuana. And if we look in our own families, your children have done the same thing. They just haven't been caught. Or maybe they have been caught. There is a disproportionate effect of the criminal justice system on the African-American community. 1 in 3 African-American males are under criminal justice supervision Monday through Sunday. We are 12% of the total population, but more than 80% of the incarcerated persons because we don't live in Ellaby Road. We don't have a relationship where our parents can call the DA and say, you know, I live next door to you and my son got in trouble. We've got to bring this to everybody. That's why the crimes of young people have become more heinous. Young people feel that they have no alternative but crime. I believe in partnering with teachers, going to classes, giving talks, having the assistant district attorneys go to the superintendent's board meeting. Why doesn't the DA go to the board meetings of the Caddo Parish superintendent? We need to have visibility. We need to get our churches involved. I believe in faith-based initiatives because I was brought up in Sunday school. But we have a generation of children who don't even know what Sunday school is, don't have a moral center. No one has ever told them what's right and wrong, Miss Bessie. So I believe the DA has to provide the leadership to partner with business, faith-based initiatives, law enforcement, and education to provide activities. What about a conflict resolution camp in the summer? We gather the children from all over the community and we teach them how to resolve a conflict. When you were small, your mother or your grandmother told you, don't play with that little girl because y'all had a fight last week. You didn't go home and get a gun or a knife. You didn't play with that little girl. Today, when children have a fight, they go and get a weapon. They have not been taught how to peacefully resolve a conflict. This can be a camp the DA does in the summertime, where district attorneys, police officers, with rank and without rank, because I believe in a beat cop. I'm going to tell you the truth. The beat cop is out there on the front line. He's there every day when you call because somebody's trying to break in your house. We got to get them involved. Why can't the churches in our community say, we're gonna have law enforcement day? We want whoever is patrolling this area to come to our church. We're gonna have cookies and punch. We wanna look you in the face, and we want you to look us in the face. We want you to know all of us are human beings. All of our lives matter. And all of us have to get it on board. You're right, Miss Bessie. Promises don't do anything. Our American country is taking on water in its pirogue. We can either point a finger and blame somebody, or we can all get in here and roll. I believe that you got to roll. And to roll a boat, it takes both hands. I think we've got to get people like you, our community leaders, our teachers, business persons, to teach those who are not being taught, to prevent criminal activity. Instead of just talking about being tough on crime, how about producing less criminals? If you produce fewer criminals, have you heard anybody but me talk about this? If you produce fewer criminals, you have less crime. The DA's job is not to just sit behind a desk and say, prosecute, prosecute, prosecute. The DA's job is to go out and try to make this city, this parish, a better place. One-on-one, child by child, family by family. And you're right, when something happens, someone from the DA's office needs to be present. We need a special victims unit. That unit needs to focus on crimes that are committed against the disabled, against children, against women. Imagine the scenario I told you. You've been raped, and a man comes in to get your information. That makes sense. He has no vagina. He doesn't know what it feels like. Why don't we have a special victims unit where people who understand crimes against children, the disabled, and women, who has the training to interview, follow the case along, and provide support? Domestic violence. What good is it to prosecute the case if you don't put the woman in a safe place? Statistically, a woman who has small children will not leave her abuser, and she will try to dismiss the charges. We can stand as the district attorney and say, I'm going to be tough on crime, and I'm going to prosecute John Brown. What happens to Mrs. Brown and the 2-year-old and the 4-year-old? Do we get them into housing, or do we allow him to bond out and kill her? Happened 2 or 3 times in the last 3 years. What I'm saying is we must treat him fairly, but we have to provide an intervention. We have to make sure the witness is safe. We have to make sure the children are safe. We have to let the woman know this is a crime, not a personal matter. But we also have to be involved in teaching adults conflict resolution. We can be involved with other organizations to talk about reducing violence in our community. Let's just talk about it. Let's talk about how women and men react. Let's give people the tools they need to be better fathers, better mothers, better citizens. It takes work. It takes more than sitting behind a desk, and you're right.
Mayor.
Judge Alford, thank you for your service, and with all of the insurrection that is going on throughout this country as it relates to police officers using excessive force against ordinary citizens of color, what would be your approach? Because most people, and we have heard a lot of people stand up there and talk, most people want to look at this thing as if it doesn't exist or it's only happening to a certain group of people. We that are fighting for Black Lives Matter, we understand the bait and switch that they're trying to say that all lives matter. But we understand that all lives matter. But with looking through human eyes and seeing who's being the victim of police brutality and prosecutorial misconduct, what would you do, sweetie? What would you do to those law enforcement? We have good officers, but when I ask the good officers, why won't you turn in the bad officers? They say, well, we work with the Fraternal Order of Police. We are a brotherhood. And if we go against each other, Pastor Mays, I say, but you ask me as pastors to tell the people in the community when you see a crime, tell the police, work together with them. So it seems that there's a disconnect somewhere. But we want the people to say, let's tell on the police, but we can't trust law enforcement to say, hey, look at here, this cop is a bad cop. Let's report they were not doing it. And we have some good officers. So I want to know, as a candidate for the next district attorney, what would you do with the malicious prosecution that's going on within this state, mass incarceration that you just alluded to? What would you do as the next district attorney to try to mend some of this stuff that's going on?
Well, thank you for that question. There are several questions. I'm gonna try to attack one at a time.
Appreciate it.
When I was a judge, there was a young woman who was throwing bottles at the police. I said to her, police officers are trained to kill. The police organization asked for me to step down from the bench. I was trying to save her life. They never put in the paper that I put that woman in jail. She had a baby, an infant. I put her in jail because I wanted to tell her this is not going to work. If you go on my Facebook page, I decided to do something in response to what's been going on in our country. And it's called What I Tell My Child. This is what I tell my African-American child with that lovely curly hair, tight curls, whose grandmother gave him a red Caddo. I said, when the police officer gets behind you, start to slow down. When his light goes on, pull and stop. Take your hands. Now follow me now. I'm talking about this. Take your hands and put them on the steering column. Roll down the window. If you can push record on your phone, record. When the police officer comes to you, because there are two most dangerous calls. The two most dangerous calls for a police officer are traffic calls and domestic violence. That's where they get killed. Nope. He's hyped up. So, I said, keep those hands on the steering wheel. When he approaches, and you roll your window down, hopefully you don't have a blunt in that car. That's what I tell my child. But if you do, put those hands on the steering wheel. And when he says, may I see your driver's license? I said, now it's Simon Says. Say, officer, may I reach for my driver's license in my pocket? Don't just do this. This is what I tell my baby that came out of my womb. I said, keep those hands on the steering wheel. When he asks for the driver's license, tell him where it is. Is it in the glove compartment? Is it in my pocket? Officer, it's in the glove compartment. May I reach for it? If he says yes, reach for it. Give him your driver's license. I said the next thing, when he asks for your insurance and registration, keep those hands on the steering wheel. And here, Miss Bessie, where our community must be involved. Our kids got to have their driver's license, their insurance and registration in the car. We can't blame it on somebody else. They don't need to be driving. We got to make sure they have what they need to be driving with, okay? We got to teach that, okay? You give them the license and registration, and you give them the insurance. Whatever the ticket is. You take the ticket, apologize I was speeding, apologize I didn't make that right turn signal. That diffuses the situation. If there is a problem, I always taught them to memorize the badge number. I learned that at Tulane, my first year of constitutional criminal procedure, when the Orleans Parish Police Department was working for the drug cartel in the 80s. They were actually bringing the drugs in for the drug cartel, the police department. My white professor said to me, and all of us, there were 29 African Americans in that class, only 29 of us. He said, don't tell that cop you're in law school. Don't tell him you go to Tulane. Just be respectful, memorize the badge number. If there's a problem, there's a procedure for it. Now, why do I tell my child that? Because I don't want a civil rights case. I don't want $1 million. I want him to stay alive.
That's right.
Now, what else can we do? I said earlier, we got to get to know who is in our community. Who are the officers that work on the Martin Luther King area? Who is assigned there? What are their names? When we have community meetings, we need to know who they are. That's easy to find out. Then we need to have them come to our community meetings. We need to talk about, this is going on and this is what we're having a problem with. We got to get together because we all will either sink and
Just
fall
one
together.
quick note before we move on to somebody else. When you do everything that is right, see what we got to really address is that the power has been taken out of the hands of the parents. The federal government told us, up under these same laws, you can't whoop your children. Okay, you can't whoop them. The parents are scared of the police. The police is scared of the children.
They sure are.
The children are scared of nobody. And that's the reason why we're in the situation that we're in. The parents feel that they have no power over, and I'm hearing this constantly out of parents. They said, we have no power in our own household. I was raised up with 15 other sisters and brothers. We worked in the field, we went to school. When you got your butt towed up, the community, if you ran to somebody else's house, you got a whooping there. These people have taken the power away from the family, and that's why we in the situation we in, because the children fear nobody.
That's true.
And that's what we're in now.
Well,
but if you could just speak to
Well, one of
prosecutory misconduct.
one of the facets of our problem is that I had a situation where a young man was 14 and he pulled an Uzi on his mother. His mother was charged with battery because she whipped him. And this case, I was sanctioned for this case. I took that 14-year-old and I told him, I don't know who you are, but you're not going to be in a gang. And you're going to go to school. Because let me show you what jail looks like. I got in a lot of trouble about that because I believe that parents should be able to whip their children. I don't mean choke them, bruise them, knock them in the face. I got whippings, you got whippings, and we survived that. We have to look at the prosecutor's office has discretion. Discretion in what case to go after. Those cases where a child is not injured to the point that this child could die. This is not necessary to beat a child till he or she is at death's door. This is one of the concerns the prosecutor's office has, because sometimes what happens is those people who have not been parented don't really know how to teach and train. So they beat the child. And sometimes these children are very, very small. You can't beat a 4-year-old. And frankly, by the time somebody gets 14 or 15, if you haven't raised them by then, you can't raise them. So I go back to what you're saying. I know the attitude in the black community is that we feel like it's just us being killed. I have a son who's 18 years old. He came to me in tears. This child had an IQ of 187. He came to me in tears and said, Mama, what's going to happen? I said, what's going to happen is we've got to try to get in the boat and work together. We got to get some more mamas out there. We got to get grandmama back in there. Grandmama used to wear the little house coat with a slip under it and the stocking on the side. We got to get her involved in teaching and training. We got to go to our teachers and provide them the support that they need. Some teachers who are attacked by their students are not even allowed to know where their student goes. So they don't know if they go to another school where they're going to be attacked again. Does that make sense? So what I'm saying is, I understand there's a great distrust. How do you change a society? You have to reach back. You have to teach those children mutual respect. You have to work with the law enforcement and work with the community so we don't just call on law enforcement when we have a problem. That we call on them and invite them to our community meetings. We invite them to our block parties so we get to know who they are and they get to know us. Psychiatrists have done a study that the more you humanize a person, the easier it is you can get away from a crime. I'll give you an example. If a person is getting ready to attack you and there's no way for you to get out, if you tell the perpetrator, you know I'm a mother, and I work at the Circle K, and if I don't work, my children don't eat. Now, I'm going to give you my purse and everything I have, But what you did, I'm not gonna tell anything. She is humanizing herself. I think we have to humanize and say, I'm a father. I live on Kelsey. And every day I get up at 6 a.m. so I can get to the job, and I work 2 jobs. I have 4 children in school, Officer Brown. And I would really appreciate your input if you ever see my children in trouble. This is Eric, this is Jarius, this is Fred Jr., and this is Cedric. If you ever see them in trouble, just let me know. I think we've got to get more involved. It used to be that way, and I want to take us back to, you remember Mayberry RFD? Remember on Friday, what was the guy's name? Otis? Otis would come to the jail, and he would open the jail, and he would put himself in. Actually, Shreveport used to be a lot like that, and we had a Barney with the bullets in his pocket. I, like you, would like to see less deadly force, more peaceful action between both.
And please work on the black jurors being stricken from, please work on that. I'm gonna work on that. That's a serious